I'm gonna record the notes for my methods. I think I already recorded super methods. It's about 300. I have over 1,000 methods. The first I'm gonna try and record maybe up to 300. Depends how fast I go. But the first ones I'm gonna record, and not later ones. And most of the first ones I think are logic, but they're drawn from everywhere. I mean, from science, philosophy, science fiction, and fantasy, and everywhere. So, philosophy, engineering, science. Yeah. Okay, so the first ones are not so technical, but a lot of them are not available anywhere as a collection. This is very important because methods can be used in all kinds of professions. So all jobs can use them. Okay, so I'll try and go faster this time at the beginning. Just an idea to show you. This is one book I have, Critique of Pure Reason of Immanuel Kant. It's a later edition. This one is copyright 2009. I have another copy of it there, an older one. Of course, I have Einstein's book, and I have even in translation. I have Einstein's book, and I have Maimonides' book, and I have Aquinas and Spinoza. I have many of the great masterpieces. Aristotle collection, finally I got the complete collection of Aristotle. So there's a lot to draw on. And I have Roddenberry. Finally I got the whole collection of Star Trek. The original series, Star Trek The Next Generation, complete and Andromeda, Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, plus some of the other ones. Okay, so, but here I'm going to use the methods, because methods are what reasoning uses. It's for computers, which are artificial brains, or for real organic brains, which is like us, or it could also be for angels or gods. They use some of these methods, or even our cells, or the lower body cells in our body may use these reasoning methods. Probably some of them more simplified version. In fact, my theory of medicine is that all diseases are really, including cancer, are disorders of the methods that are used inside the cell or in the brain. And with psychology, psychiatry is just a higher level. So the key is to find what method is used, and if it's the wrong method, or what's the problem with it. Is it the wrong inference or the wrong premise? Or is it just inefficient? A lot of people use very inefficient reasoning methods, and to fix it. Okay, so that's the cure for just about all diseases. The cure is to fix the reasoning method, the software used in the body, or sometimes it's implemented in hardware. I mean, it's connections, not stored in memory. Okay, so methods of rethinking logic, mathematics, algorithms, artificial intelligence, competitive algorithms, geometry, calculus, algebra, etc. So, okay, just a date. Today is February 4, 2016. Took a day off. It's 5:29. Really, my watch says 5:10. So that watch is about 20 minutes fast. That's close enough. Okay. On Sunday, they had the Grease live. It's amazing. 40 years after the original one. So there's a picture there. And I was surprised that John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John were not in the audience. But anyway, it was live from California. The first time I ever saw a live play on TV. It's like being in the audience because only a few second delay. Okay, So let's start. I think it gets more complicated, but at the beginning we'll see how it goes. This is the first draft. Okay. Okay, so methods of reasoning. Okay. Okay. It is not easy to discover all the methods of reasoning, though many great masters have discovered different methods. Kant would probably say that we should use a principle to ensure completeness. The principle may seem impossible of discovery, but after listing hundreds of methods and principles of reasoning, then it may seem clear. Yet it may not be easy to reduce hundreds of methods and principles to one principle. Kant used the syllogism of Aristotle as a principle for his system. Ironically, this limited his system, since the syllogism may be only one part of human reasoning, though Kant held logic to be static since Aristotle's time. That is, today it seems we have major extensions of the syllogism and variations of it, as well as new methods of reasoning. By the way, I changed the light here. See, it's brighter now. I think I changed it before. It was 600 watts to 2 light bulbs. I changed it to 100. Seems like somebody changed it again back to 60. So I changed it back to 100. Seems much brighter. It's much more cheerful. You can see better. It's going to raise your hydro bill. Yeah, sabotage. Okay. But Maimonides may have also revolutionized logic in the 12th century. However, he was practical, not a theoretical intellectual like his work, like Aristotle. His methods and principles of reasoning must be extracted from his work, especially the Guide of the Perplexed, where they appear applied in presenting solutions to problems. Maimonides' contribution to logical philosophy has been greatly overlooked, partly because he wrote in a different manner, making him hard to follow. He did a lot in metaphysics and philosophy of religion, and these may be the greatest part of philosophy. His logical principles are presented separately. Well, I have a list of many of the principles of logic that Maimonides used, but I'll record it later. You should familiarize yourself with all these methods. It is not possible to explain all of them here in detail, but only mention them so that you know they exist and can search them out if need be. Indeed, if you are aspiring to be a leader of a team, then you should know what methods are available to you and your team. A computer should be able to carry out all these manners of reasoning. Well, I really know today's computer just uses the method of arithmetic and Boolean logic. Boolean logic is very just like and, or, not, inversion. Very simple, that's it. Everything done on software. Okay, so maybe you can design a new computer using all these methods. Like I said, we have over 100 methods. We should belong really to over 300 super methods of reasoning to classify them. Okay, so I mean, different people use different collections. Again, a PhD is usually between 30 and 300 pages, and done usually around the age of 25. Completed by the age. I'm about 55 now, almost 56. And science PhDs are usually much shorter, closer to about 30 pages, 40 pages. Philosophy is more like maybe 200 or 300 pages. Okay, number 1, Socratic method. Socratic dialectic, the debate with a person who believes he knows something and make him contradict himself, seeing the limitations of his knowledge and getting some new insight to the subject as a result. This is from Socrates, I guess. Number 2, Aristotle, syllogistic reasoning, identifying 3 figures of a syllogism and reducing them to the first figure. Later, other logicians, perhaps Galen, discovered a 4th figure, though Hegel considers it to be unimportant. A syllogism draws a conclusion from a pair of premises. Kant seems to consider this as a rule, a major premise, such as all men are mortal, and a judgment, which is the minor premise, such as Socrates is a man, and the conclusion, which is by the inference, such as Socrates is mortal. So there are three propositions in a syllogism. The conclusion is drawn because of the connection between the extremes, which are man and Socrates, in the premise by the middle term, namely man. Recently, the limitations of Aristotle's method has been found, so it must be upgraded. For instance, he did not allow for relationships in the premises. These would require multiple quantification, which is used today. He did not allow complex compound statements to be put instead of simple terms, and he didn't allow quantification over predicates and functions, but only over variables. This is part of higher order predicate logic and is still little understood. Also, in many cases, several syllogisms must be used, and I think that's called a sorites. And when the knowledge base is huge, we need heuristics to help decide which premises and rules to use. Heuristic is just a rule of thumb, a guideline. Aristotle did not mention any of these. I think Frege introduced quantification. Okay. Number 3, Descartes, geometric proof. This method starts with a set of definitions and axioms and proves the results which it uses in the process of proving other results and so on. This is similar to syllogistic reasoning, except that the arguments are not classified, nor are the inferences rules listed, so it may use reasoning tools not covered by Aristotle's simple account of reasoning. One should analyze Spinoza's The Ethics to see these more clearly. Spinoza's Ethics is very complicated. It's presented in geometrical form and geometrical proof, and I think part of it includes like about 60 proofs just to prove that the mind of man is immortal. Although really, if God is existent, there's no question about it. And by the way, I'm wearing a McGill shirt. I graduated at McGill University in science. Did extra year, and I do volunteer work at a McGill University teaching hospital, working with McGill, with graduates of McGill Medical School, doing their residency, trying to get their medical license to practice medicine and family medicine. Okay, number 4, Kant, antimony method. Give proofs for opposite conclusions and infer that therefore some logical was broken. Kant concluded, for instance, the 12 categories of the understanding and the 2 a priori intuitions of space and time cannot be applied to transcendental ideas of world, soul, and God, since doing so resulted in contradictions. But the antimonies have logical problems, and hence his conclusion is negated. Kant said the fallacy was sophisma figura dictionis, and then he tried to, so he said both sides of the antimony are invalidated. This was written a long time ago. I have made progress since then. Number 5, Hegel, Hegelian dialectic. According to Marx, Hegel posits God, negates him, and then brings him back. This method proceeds from thesis to antithesis to synthesis. According to Singer, the method first starts from a given proposition, then finds that it contains the seeds of its own destruction, and finally the third position combines the positive aspect of its own predecessors. Number 6, Wittgenstein, analysis of propositions. According to Russell, the structure of propositions tells us a lot about the world. Anyway, this may be similar to physicists who conclude things about reality simply by using the fact that systems of units are consistent. E.g., this can be used to calculate the speed of light without actually measuring. See, I did this at McGill University, an experiment designed by the professor. to measure the speed of light. You use electronic circuits and then consistency of units to calculate the speed of light, because it's very hard to measure the speed of light so fast, 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. Number 7. Robinson resolution refutation. The method proceeds by assuming the opposite of what is to be proved and adding it to the knowledge base, finally deriving a contradiction which shows that what was the goal of the proof is true. Others did it before ? Well, really Kant did that in all of his antinomies. Even maybe Aristotle did it 2,500 years ago. Kant was about 200 years ago. Many contributors, okay. This is number 8. Many contributors. Neural networks. A network with neurons having input and output related according to some function. Each connection having a way to determine its contribution. And each neuron having a bias function which also affects its behavior. The thinking itself seems to be merely a flow of numbers through the network. The main part of this design is the learning algorithms, which are quite complex. Once they have affected the network, then the network will perform in an improved manner. It seems one would need several networks since each one is specific to a given situation. I don't think this is really how we do reasoning, although it might be good for analyzing data. There's a field of artificial intelligence now based on using neural networks. It might first go, the founder of that might be Donald Hebb, who used to work at McGill University because he introduced the idea of a neural network in the brain. Now they are extended to computers also. Because this is still page 3, and this stuff is typed so it's easier to read. Number 9, Galileo or Newton ? Physical science. Do a scientific experiment to obtain a set of data between two seemingly related variables and attempt to incorporate the data with some function to establish a law. Well, some people say it actually was Bacon who said you should do an experiment, not let nature lead you. You should control nature to acquire knowledge. Somebody told me even in psychology or medicine they also do this experiment to get laws, not just physics. Okay, number 10. Many contributors, biology and psychology or medicine. Okay, do a scientific or medical experiment using one sample chosen at random and do different treatments, or choose several random samples and apply different treatments to each. One of the treatments can be a control treatment or placebo treatment where no real treatment is given. Statistical tests such as F-tests or T-tests are used to rule out the possibility that chance alone is responsible for this difference observed between different treatments. Also plot measures, ? Also use regression, ? Okay. Number 11. Maimonides, negation. Proof of attributes of a concept by proving what it does not possess. E.g., according to Maimonides, God has no positive attributes. So we must only prove that things are incompatible with him. Allows narrowing down the concept of a thing by zooming in on it. In Maimonides' theory of worship, you get the more you know about God, that what he is not, the closer you get closer to him. It's based on reason, not morality. Well, he didn't even believe in free will, so. But that's because Maimonides accepted God. He believed in him to be necessary existent, or the prime mover, according like Abraham or Moses, but used Aristotle's philosophy to analyze it, and he got that God was immutable, one, outside time, and simple, and before he went on to say he has no attributes. Okay, number 12. Well, I have a whole discussion of the nature of God. Well, in a way, the whole of my Maimonides of the Perplexity is about God. It's really a theory about God, based on reason. But we have almost maybe 1,000 proofs of the existence of God and His nature. So we've come a long way since then. Maimonides was about 800 years ago. Okay. Unknown thinking, proof of proof. Give a proof that the proof that you gave is correct by a second proof. Of course, this can theoretically go on to infinity. Number 13, unknown thinking, computer program verification by compiler. Limited at present to mostly syntactical errors. A compiler is a program that translates the higher level programming language in which a computer programmer writes an algorithms for a computer into assembly code and machine code so the computer can understand it. Okay, number 14. Von Neumann, John von Neumann. Question mark. Computer program verification by processor at runtime, mostly limited to checking mathematical computations and invalid memory references out of range of numbers. Some errors you can detect only once you're running the program. You can't detect it before by the compiler before you run it. And you can also print out a trace. Like if you have an error, you can print out different things at different places. You can try and figure out what the problem and diagnose the problem. The same computer programs are becoming so complicated that it's becoming too difficult even for computer programmers to maintain them. You're supposed to use break it up, modularity, and add a lot of comments to explain what you're doing and to make it easier. Otherwise, it's impossible. Even in higher level language, let alone if you use assembler. Number 15, unknown computer verification using higher level programming language. An argument can be entered into the computer by entering the premises, and the computer will answer if the conclusion follows from the premises. Okay, number 16, prophet, Moses. Divine inspiration. Obtain axioms and theories ready-made from a higher being. Well, like God today actually we might call God and angels, just call them aliens. Just that we have a different word for it. And even on Star Trek they believe in aliens, but a lot of them are way superior to us. That's what angels and aliens are. I mean, that's where aliens are superior. That's what God and angel are. And some of them may be us once in the future, or after we die, we would become angels or go to heaven. Number 17, Euclidean geometry. Reduce physical world to mathematical model which has necessary rules. Limited to worlds where the measure of distance obeys the equation that between 2 points it is the square root of the sum of the difference of the coordinate distance squared. Okay, this is from page 4. Newton, okay, number 18. Newton, possibly Leibniz, the calculus. Add infinitesimal quantities into mathematical reasoning. This we will attempt to do to logical reasoning later. So we have the differential and integral calculus. Derivative is mostly like if you do the slope of a line. That's the slope. It gets more complicated if it's not a line, it's a curve. So you have a derivative. And the integral is the area under the curve. It gets more complicated if it's not a square. So you use calculus. Well, Newton and Leibniz fought each other to say who really invented the calculus. Number 19. Well, they say calculus is really the basis of all modern science, especially physics. Although really Newton didn't use it in his physics. It was done later. 19. Gaussian coordinates. Generalization of Euclidean geometry where the distance is no longer Euclidean, since the coordinate axes are curves instead of lines. This was used by Einstein in relativity theory. Okay. Number 20. Many contributors. Complex analysis. Extend mapping of world to imaginary axis. Using the complex plane which has an imaginary part and a real part, it is possible to convert problems to it about our real world, then solve them and bring them back results to our world. The imaginary axis is also numbers which are the multiple of the square root of -1. The real and imaginary axes are orthogonal, so any point is given by a real and an imaginary component. The letter I is usually used to indicate the imaginary component. So a complex number is, for example, 1 plus 2i. I think Euler introduced the idea of I, because if you use -1, you get all kinds of problems. So use I instead of -1. I mean, I instead of the square root of -1. Cauchy did a lot of imaginary numbers. Minkowski had forced space-time. So Einstein used imaginary number. It's very tricky. This is tricky. It might have caused Einstein problems, actually. What does it mean when you have the square root of -1? Is that another universe, or what? Or just does it mean that the object is just going in the other direction relative to what you said? Okay. Number 21. Unknown. Analog computer solution. At present, problems which give rise to a differential equations can be represented by electronic circuits, and by making proper measurements, the solution to these equations can be found. More general, analog computers will require analysis of waves such as amplitude modulation or frequency modulation in order to build knowledge from analog data. Differential equations are just an equation with derivatives. Okay. Derivatives are like slopes. Number 22. Newton and later Einstein make theory and then make predictions which can be verified in support or refutation of the theory. Both of them make predictions in astronomy, for example, which were confirmed later. Einstein predicted the existence of gravitational waves, which was confirmed. Really, Einstein had trouble with the cosmological constant. Some people say he could have predicted the expansion of the universe, and so he said, well, maybe that was one of his biggest mistakes, because he believed in a static universe. Hubble helped prove the expansion of the universe. Or later, even they say the universe is accelerating. But anyway, Einstein's theory was confirmed when he was 41 years old, because he predicted the curvature of life would be twice what Newton's theory would predict, and they checked it by an expedition, and when he was 41 they confirmed that it was double what Newton said, agreed with his prediction. So Einstein's theory became accepted and he became world famous. Number 23, Darwin and others, evolution, the theory of evolution. Reason in an evolutionary way by such methods as crossing over, mutation, or reproduction. That is, exchange individuals or make random changes or copy individuals and add to knowledge base. See artificial intelligence, genetic algorithms. They use the theory of evolution there. It's one of the fields of artificial intelligence along with. Well, a lot of doctors and biologists consider the theory of evolution of Darwin to be proven, but I don't know. I don't think it's really proven, but anyway. Okay, and I'm 24. Alpha Beta Search. I think that's by John von Neumann.